Welcome to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne. Settle in with a cup of tea, or perhaps a cozy blanket, as we embark on a tale of intrigue and deduction in the grand tradition of Agatha Christie. Tonight, we present Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. This is a long-form mystery, perfect for those late-night listens or relaxing afternoons. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next whodunit. And tell me in the comments below, where are you listening from? Is it a bustling city like London or a quiet countryside retreat? Let's dive in, shall we? I'll read slowly and deliberately, painting each scene with care, so you can truly immerse yourself. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Ashford Manor. Welcome to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and tonight we're stepping into the elegant and treacherous world of Agatha Christie with a brand new tale. Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. Picture yourself in a cozy armchair, perhaps with a steaming cup of Earl Grey, or tucked beneath a soft blanket, as we journey to the misty hills of 1920s England. This is a long, immersive mystery, perfect for unwinding or losing yourself in a web of intrigue. If you're new to the channel, do hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a tale. And, I'd love to know, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below. Are you in a bustling city like London, or perhaps a quiet village where secrets lurk behind every hedgerow? Now, let's set the scene, shall we? I'll read slowly, deliberately, letting each detail unfold like a petal in the morning dew. It was the autumn of 1925, and the English countryside was a tapestry of amber and gold, its rolling hills cloaked in mist that clung to the earth like a lover's whisper. In the heart of Sussex stood Ashford Manor, a grand he'd ruined rivals without a second thought. Others spoke of his charm, which could disarm even the most skeptical. Sir Reginald had recently returned from a grand tour of the continent, where he boasted of acquiring rare artifacts, treasures that promised to dazzle his guests and, perhaps, stir their envy. The occasion for our tale was no ordinary gathering, but a weekend gala to celebrate the engagement of Sir Reginald's only daughter, Lady Victoria Harrington. At 25, Victoria was a vision of modern elegance. Her raven hair swept into a fashionable bob, her eyes alight with the fire of youth. She moved through the world with a grace that belied her sharp wit, her laughter a melody that could charm a room. Her betrothed was Captain Desmond Lyle, a war hero whose rugged handsomeness was accentuated by a jagged scar across his left cheek, a memento from the trenches of the Great War. Desmond's easy smile and gallant demeanor made him the darling of society, though some whispered of shadows in his past, rumors of wartime dealings that were less than heroic. The gala promised to be a spectacle, and Sir Reginald had spared no expense. Invitations embossed with gold leaf had been sent to a carefully curated list of guests, each chosen for reasons both overt and obscure. Some were bound to the Harrington family by blood or friendship, others by debts or secrets. The air was thick with anticipation, for Ashford Manor was a stage where alliances were forged and betrayals unveiled. Among those summoned was none other than Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective whose reputation preceded him like a fanfare. With his egg-shaped head, meticulously waxed mustache, and fastidious black patent leather shoes, Poirot was an unlikely hero. Yet his little gray cells had unraveled mysteries that baffled Scotland Yard. He had met Sir Reginald years earlier on the Orient Express, where a matter of stolen jewels had been discreetly resolved. The industrialist's letter to Poirot was effusive. "Mon ami, your presence at Ashford Manor would honor us. A weekend in the country may amuse your..." Betrayed no emotion. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome to Ashford Manor," he said, his voice smooth as polished mahogany. "Sir Reginald awaits you." The drive to the manor was a journey through time, the car gliding past hedgerows and ancient oaks, their branches forming a canopy over the narrow lane. Poirot's keen eyes noted every detail. A groundskeeper pausing to watch the car, a flicker of movement in an upstairs window. "This place, it has secrets," he murmured to himself, his accent soft but precise. "And where there are secrets, there is always a story." Upon arrival, Graves led Poirot through the manor's grand entrance, a cavernous hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Harrington ancestors. Their painted eyes seemed to follow the detective as he was shown to his suite, a lavish room overlooking the gardens, where roses swayed in the breeze like dancers at a ball. The room was furnished with a four-poster bed, a mahogany writing desk, and a fireplace that crackled invitingly. Poirot unpacked his small valise, arranging his toiletries with military precision, his mustache twitching as he anticipated the evening ahead. As he descended to the drawing room for pre-dinner drinks, Poirot observed the other guests, each a potential player in the drama he sensed brewing. First was Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, Sir Reginald's sister-in-law, a widow in her early 40s with sharp cheekbones and a string of pearls that seemed to weigh heavily on her slender neck. Her dark eyes held a quiet intensity, and Poirot recalled whispers of a bitter dispute. Her late husband, Sir Reginald's brother, had left her an inheritance that Sir Reginald contested in court, claiming it rightfully belonged to the family estate. Was her presence a gesture of reconciliation or a prelude to revenge? Next was Dr. Julian Thorne, the family physician, a bespectacled man of 50 whose nervous tic, a slight twitch in his left eye, betrayed an unease that his calm demeanor could not mask. Dr. Thorne had treated Sir Reginald for a mysterious ailment, but rumors swirled that he owed the industrialist with acrid smoke. His ruddy face and booming laugh masked a deeper resentment. Years ago, Sir Reginald had outmaneuvered him in a business deal, costing the colonel his fortune and leaving him a guest in a world he once commanded. His hand gripping the cigar trembled slightly. Anger, or something else. Finally, there was the enigmatic Countess Irina Petrova, a Russian émigré in her 30s, whose porcelain skin and fur stole spoke of aristocratic elegance. She claimed to be an art collector, her interest piqued by Sir Reginald's latest acquisitions, particularly a crimson ruby rumored to carry a curse. Her accent was soft, her smile beguiling, but Poirot's instincts whispered of ulterior motives. Was she truly after art, or was the ruby's dark legend her true quarry? As the guests mingled, the drawing room buzzed with polite conversation, the clink of crystal glasses, and the soft strains of a gramophone playing a waltz. Sir Reginald presided over the gathering like a benevolent king, his laughter hearty, his anecdotes grand. Yet Poirot, sipping a tisane, observed the undercurrents. A glance exchanged between Mrs. Blackwood and Dr. Thorne, too fleeting to be innocent. Miss Voss's pen scratching furiously as she watched Captain Lyle. The Colonel's forced chuckle at Sir Reginald's jest. The Countess, meanwhile, drifted toward the display case where the crimson ruby would be unveiled later, her fingers brushing the glass with a reverence that seemed almost possessive. "Dinner will be served at 8, Graves announced, his voice cutting through the chatter. The guests moved toward the dining room, their silhouettes framed by the flickering light of chandeliers. Poirot lingered, his gaze sweeping the room. "Ah, the English country house," he said softly, his voice a caress against the silence. "It is a stage for civility, yes, but also for the daggers of the heart. And tonight, I think, the curtain rises." As we pause here, dear listeners, imagine the scene. The opulent manor, that linger like mist over the Sussex hills. If you're enjoying this, do give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell for more. And please, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? A cozy flat in London, or perhaps a seaside cottage? Let's waltz into the next act of our story, shall we? The evening at Ashford Manor had descended into a symphony of opulence, the kind that only the English aristocracy could orchestrate. As twilight draped its velvet cloak over the countryside, the guests of Sir Reginald Harrington gathered in the Crimson Ballroom, a space so grand it seemed to breathe with the weight of its own history. The room was a marvel. Walls swathed in rich scarlet velvet, heavy drapes cascading like waterfalls of blood, and gilded mirrors reflecting the glow of crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen starlight. The parquet floor, polished to a mirror sheen, gleamed beneath the feet of dancers, while a string quartet tucked in an alcove spun melodies of Strauss and Debussy, their notes weaving through the air like silken threads. Servants, silent as shadows, glided among the guests with silver trays bearing flutes of champagne that sparkled like liquid gold. Sir Reginald, resplendent in a tailored tuxedo, stood at the center of it all, his stern mustache softened by a rare smile. His voice, when he raised a glass for the first toast, carried the authority of a man accustomed to command, to love, to fortune, and to the mysteries of life, he declared, his blue eyes sweeping the room, lingering perhaps a moment too long on the enigmatic Countess Irina Petrova. The guests echoed the toast, their glasses clinking, but Hercule Poirot, standing near a marble pillar with a tisane in hand, noted the undercurrents beneath the gaiety. There was a tension in the air, sharp as the edge of a blade, hidden behind polite smiles and practiced laughter. Lady Victoria Harrington, the belle of the ball, danced with her fiancé, Captain Desmond Lyle. Her emerald gown swirled around her like a verdant sea, her raven hair catching her glass, as if anchoring herself against a storm. Dr. Thorne, his spectacles glinting, spoke with forced calm, but his nervous tic betrayed him, his left eye twitching like a moth against a flame. Colonel Marcus Hale, meanwhile, held court near the fireplace, his cigar smoke curling upward as he recounted tales of the Boer War to a small circle of guests. His ruddy cheeks flushed deeper with each puff, and Poirot observed the way his eyes darted toward Sir Reginald, a shadow of old grudges flickering in their depths. The Countess Petrova, ethereal in a gown of silver silk, moved through the crowd like a wisp of smoke, her fur stole trailing behind her. She paused often to admire the manor's artworks, but her attention seemed drawn inexorably to the center of the ballroom, where a glass case stood on a velvet-draped pedestal. Within it gleamed the crimson ruby, Sir Reginald's prized acquisition, a gem the size of a quail's egg, its facets catching the light in a dance of fire and shadow. The ruby was the evening centerpiece, unveiled with great ceremony just before the dancing began. Sir Reginald, standing beside it, had spoken with a theatrical flourish. "This ruby, my friends, is said to carry a curse. Death to those who steal it," he said, his tone half jesting, half challenging. "But I am not a man to fear legends." The guests had laughed, but Poirot noted the Countess's eyes, narrowed and gleaming, and the way Colonel Hale's hand tightened on his cigar. As the quartet struck up a new waltz, the ballroom pulsed with life, the swirl of gowns and the clink of glasses creating a tapestry of sound and color. Poirot, ever the observer, sipped his tisane, his mustache twitching as he catalogued the scene. He noted the butler, Mr. Graves, overseeing the servants with a hawk-like gaze, his silver hair catching the light as he moved with practiced precision. A maid, young and nervous, nearly dropped a tray when Dr. Thorne brushed past her, his apology too quick to be sincere. Mrs. Blackwood excused herself to the powder room, her step before disappearing inside. The guests barely noticed, swept up in the dance. But Poirot's eyes followed him, his mind already turning over the possibilities. The party continued, the quartet playing a livelier tune, the champagne flowing freely. Lady Victoria and Desmond twirled at the center of the floor, their laughter a bright note in the evening's melody. Yet Poirot sensed a shift, a subtle tightening of the air, as if the manor itself held its breath. He moved closer to the study door, his steps silent, his ears attuned to the faintest irregularity. The ruby gleamed in its case, unguarded now, its light almost mocking. The Countess drifted nearby, her gaze flickering between the gem and the study door. Dr. Thorne at the bar poured another drink, his hands unsteady. Miss Voss returned from the library, her cheeks flushed, her notebook tucked under her arm. Then, as the clock neared midnight, a scream shattered the elegance of the evening. It was Lady Victoria, her voice raw with panic, cutting through the music like a blade. The quartet faltered, strings screeching to a halt. Guests froze, glasses halfway to their lips, as Victoria stumbled from the direction of the study door. "Father!" she cried, her hands trembling as she clutched her gown. "Something's wrong. Father!" Poirot was at her side in an instant, his calm presence a counterpoint to her distress. "Mademoiselle, what has happened?" he asked, his voice steady but urgent. Victoria's eyes were wide with horror. "I went to fetch him for the midnight toast," she gasped. "The door. It's locked, and he doesn't answer." The guests crowded around, murmurs of alarm rippling through the room. Captain Lyle took Victoria's arm, his face pale but resolute. Colonel Hale pushed forward, barking, "Break it down!" Mr. Graves, ever composed, hesitated only a moment before fetching a heavy iron tool from the servants' quarters. Poirot raised a hand. "No, no. We must preserve the scene," he said. But the urgency of the moment overruled him. Perhaps, Poirot thought, guilt. The Crimson Ballroom, so vibrant moments ago, now seemed a stage for death, its scarlet walls closing in like a trap. And there we pause, dear listeners, with the mystery unfolding before us. What secrets lie behind that locked door? Who among these elegant guests harbors a killer's heart? Stay with us for the next chapter, and let me know in the comments, who do you suspect? This is Elias Thorne signing off for now, but the shadows of Ashford Manor await. Sleep well, or, perhaps, dream of clues. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Suspicion Falls. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and we're plunging deeper into the labyrinth of corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're joining us now, find a cozy corner, perhaps with a flickering candle or a soft throw, and let the shadows of 1920s England draw you in. For those who've been with us, thank you for returning to Ashford Manor, where death has cast its chill over a night of revelry. This tale is crafted for those moments when you crave suspense, so I'll read slowly, letting each revelation unfold like mist parting over a darkened lake. If you're enjoying this journey, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap that bell for more mysteries. And do tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? I think you are ready. Everyone, you are. A quiet hamlet, or a city alive with secrets? Let's step back into the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are already at work. The air in Ashford Manor had turned heavy, as if the very walls mourned the loss of their master. The Crimson Ballroom, so recently alive with music and laughter, now stood silent, its scarlet drapes absorbing the flickering light of chandeliers like blood soaking into cloth. The guests, moments ago waltzing and sipping champagne, were now gathered in the drawing room, their faces pale, their voices hushed. Sir Reginald Harris, silver hair glinting in the lamplight, his expression unreadable. "I've sent for the local constable, sir," he informed Poirot, his voice steady as ever. "And I've telephoned Scotland Yard. Inspector Japp should arrive by morning." Poirot nodded, his mind already cataloguing the details. The bolted windows, the single locked door, the key still in Sir Reginald's pocket, the shattered glass of the ruby's case glittering like broken promises on the study floor. The guests were herded into the drawing room, a cavernous space with heavy oak furniture and portraits of stern Harrington ancestors glaring down from the walls. The fire in the hearth crackled, casting long shadows that danced like specters. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood sat rigidly in a high-backed chair, her pearls clutched tightly, her sharp features drawn. "Who could have done this?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Reginald was not a man without enemies, but this is monstrous." Dr. Julian Thorne, the family physician, stood by the fireplace, his spectacles reflecting the flames. His nervous tic was more pronounced now, his left eye twitching as he adjusted his tie. "It's unthinkable," he muttered, though his tone lacked conviction. Miss Lydia Voss paced near a bookcase, her auburn curls bouncing with each step, her notebook clutched like a shield. Her wide eyes darted from face to face as if seeking a culprit or fearing discovery. Colonel Marcus Hale, his cigar extinguished, leaned against a window, his ruddy face set in a scowl. "Damned outrage," he growled, his military bearing fraying at the edges. The Countess Irina Petrova, her silver gown shimmering, sat apart, her porcelain face serene but her fingers tracing the edge of her fur stole with restless precision. Poirot, standing before the group, clasped his hands behind his back, his posture impeccable. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his Belgian accent lending a musical cadence to his words. "A crime has been committed, one most perplexing. Sir Reginald was murdered in a room locked from within." The ruby can confirm it. His eyes flickered toward the study door, and Poirot made a mental note of his unease. Miss Voss stopped pacing, her voice soft but clear. I was in the library, writing notes for my novel. The music was distracting, so I sought quiet. She held her notebook tightly, and Poirot wondered what secrets its pages might conceal. Colonel Hale's gruff voice cut through. I was on the terrace, smoking a cigar. Needed some air after all the chatter. His boots bore traces of dew, Poirot noticed, suggesting he'd been outside longer than a brief smoke required. The Countess Petrova's smile was faint, almost ethereal. I was in the hall, admiring the paintings. The Manners collection is quite remarkable. Her accent was soft, but her eyes held a sharpness that belied her casual tone. Poirot's gaze lingered on each face, his mind sifting through their words like a jeweler examining gems. Merci, he said. These alibis, they are a beginning, but we must verify. He turned to Mr. Graves. And you, monsieur, where were you? Graves inclined his head. I was overseeing the servants in the ballroom, ensuring the champagne flowed. I stepped into the corridor briefly to instruct a maid. His composure was flawless, but Poirot noted a slight tightening of his jaw. The detective moved to the study, where the local constable, a ruddy-faced man named Sergeant Brooks, had arrived, looking out of his depth. Blimey, Mr. Poirot, Brooks said, mopping his brow. Never seen anything like it. Locked room, dagger, missing ruby. What's to be done? Poirot's eyes swept the study. The heavy oak door, its lock intact. The windows bolted shut with no signs of tampering. The Persian rug stained with Sir Reginald's blood. The shattered glass case, empty of its treasure. The dagger, ornate with a jeweled hilt, was one of a set displayed on the study wall, its blade still buried in the victim's chest. A faint scent lingered. Jasmine, hand tightened on Victoria's arm, a gesture Poirot filed away. Mrs. Blackwood bristled when asked about her time in the powder room. I was alone, as I said. Surely you don't suspect me. Her indignation was sharp, but Poirot's smile was disarming. Madame, I suspect only the truth. Dr. Thorne's tic grew more pronounced under Poirot's gaze. The bar was crowded, he insisted. I was there the whole time. Yet Poirot noticed his hands, trembling slightly, as if hiding a secret. Miss Voss clutched her notebook tighter. The library was quiet, she said. I heard the music faintly, but no one disturbed me. Her eyes flicked to Desmond, a fleeting glance that Poirot caught. Colonel Hale's scowl deepened. The terrace was dark, save for my cigar. I saw no one. But Poirot had noticed footprints in the dew outside, deeper than a brief visit would suggest. The Countess's composure remained intact. The paintings held my attention, she said. I was lost in their beauty. Yet the silk scrap in the study nagged at Poirot's mind. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the Manor's windows with a pale glow, Poirot stepped onto the terrace to clear his thoughts. The air was crisp, the scent of roses mingling with the damp earth. He examined the ground near the study's exterior window, finding more of the Colonel's footprints, pressed deep into the grass. A cigar stub lay nearby, still warm. Curieux, Poirot murmured, his little gray cells humming. Back in the drawing room, the guests whispered among themselves, suspicion casting long shadows. Mrs. Blackwood accused the Countess of coveting the ruby. Colonel Hale muttered about foreign trickery. Miss Voss scribbled furiously, her pen a blur. Poirot stood silent, his mind a whirl of possibilities. The locked room, the missing ruby, the jasmine scent, the silk scrap, all pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit. As we pause here, dear listeners, the mystery deepens. Who among these guests holds the key to the impossible crime? Enjoying this journey? Please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring that bell for more. And oh, I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? A quaint village inn, or perhaps a bustling city flat? Drop a comment and let me know. Now, let's return to the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are weaving a tapestry of truth. Dawn had broken over Ashford Manor, painting the Sussex hills in hues of gold and lavender. But within the estate's walls, the air remained thick with suspicion. The Crimson Ballroom, once a stage for laughter and waltzes, now stood silent, its scarlet drapes heavy with the weight of the night's tragedy. Sir Reginald Harrington lay dead in his locked study, a jeweled dagger in his chest, the crimson ruby stolen, and the room sealed as if by magic. Hercule Poirot, his black patent leather shoes gleaming despite the hour, stood at the heart of the investigation, his green eyes scanning the study with the precision of a watchmaker. The guests, gathered in the drawing room under the watchful gaze of Sergeant Brooks, whispered among themselves, their alibis fraying like old lace under Poirot's scrutiny. Poirot began his examination of the study with methodical care, his gloved hands hovering over each detail. The oak door, its lock untouched, bore no signs of tampering. The key, found under Sir Reginald's desk, suggested it had been dropped in a struggle. The windows, bolted from within, were secure, their frames unmarred. The Persian rug, stained with blood, told a story of violence. But the shattered glass case, where the ruby once gleamed, spoke of motive. Poirot knelt beside it, noting the silver silk scrap caught on a jagged edge, its hue matching the Countess Petrova's gown. The faint scent of jasmine lingered, a whisper of her presence. But was it clue or coincidence? Nearby, a single pearl lay on the floor, its luster dulled by dust, as if lost in haste. Poirot pocketed it carefully, his spectacles fogged with nervous sweat, stood by the fireplace, his tic more pronounced. Miss Lydia Voss, her notebook open, scribbled furiously, her auburn curls falling over her face. Colonel Marcus Hale paced near the window, his cigar replaced by a restless energy. The Countess Petrova, serene as a porcelain figurine, sipped tea, her silver gown catching the morning light. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice calm but piercing. We have a crime most perplexing, but the truth, it hides in the details. I will speak with each of you, and I ask for honesty. He turned first to Mrs. Blackwood, whose lips pursed at the attention. Madam, you spoke of your time in the powder room. Did you see anyone in the corridor near the study? Mrs. Blackwood's eyes flashed. No, monsieur. I was alone, as I said. But Reginald, he cheated me out of my inheritance. That's no secret. He contested my husband's will, claiming the estate for himself. Her voice trembled with old anger, but she added, I wouldn't kill for it. I'm no murderer. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. And you, Dr. Thorne? You were at the bar, oui? Did you notice anything unusual? Thorne's tic betrayed him, his left eye twitching like a trapped insect. Nothing, monsieur. I was fetching a brandy. The ballroom was crowded, the music loud. His hands shook slightly, and Poirot noted a faint stain on his cuff. Ink? Or something darker? Miss Voss looked up from her notebook, her voice soft but defensive. I was in the library, as I told you, writing. I heard nothing but the music. Poirot's eyes lingered on her. And what, mademoiselle, do you write? A story, perhaps, inspired by this night. She flushed, clutching her notebook tighter. It's just fiction, but I'll admit, I was jealous of Victoria once. I cared for Desmond. Twitched. He approved of our engagement, if that's what you mean. But his tone held an edge, and Poirot sensed a hidden truth. As the morning wore on, Poirot explored the manor, his cane tapping softly on the polished floors. In the corridor outside the study he found a smudge of mud, faint but fresh, near the ballroom entrance. It matched the colonel's boots, but was it from his terrace stroll, or something more? In the library where Miss Voss claimed to have been, a single earring lay on the floor, a pearl matching the one in the study. Lost or planted? Poirot mused, slipping it into his pocket. A search of Sir Reginald's desk revealed more. A ledger detailing Dr. Thorne's debts, totaling thousands, with a note in Sir Reginald's hand, to be repaid or consequences. A red herring surfaced in a crumpled note found in a wastebasket accusing the Countess of being a jewel thief, unsigned but written in a hand similar to Miss Voss's. Was it a novelist's flourish or a deliberate misdirection? Poirot interviewed the staff, their whispers adding texture to the puzzle. A maid, Elsie, admitted to overhearing an argument between Sir Reginald and Captain Lyle earlier that evening, something about honor and debts unpaid. Mr. Graves, when pressed, revealed he'd seen Mrs. Blackwood near the study corridor before her powder room visit, though she'd claimed solitude. Each clue was a thread, but the tapestry remained incomplete. Outside, Poirot examined the terrace again, finding a faint scratch on the study window's frame, barely visible. Had someone tampered with it? Or was it age? The cigar stub, still faintly warm, suggested the colonel's presence was more than casual. Poirot's mind churned. The locked room, the missing ruby, the jasmine scent, the silk scrap, the pearl, the letter. The impossible. It is only impossible until it is explained, he said softly, his eyes gleaming. Back in the drawing room, the guests grew restless, their alibis questioned, their motives exposed. Mrs. Blackwood accused the colonel of lurking. Hale retorted that the Countess's art collecting was among these guests is weaving a web of deceit. Stay with us for the next chapter and share your guesses in the comments. Who's your prime suspect? This is Elias Thorne, leaving you in the heart of the mystery. Until next time, let the shadows whisper their secrets. Chapter 5. Whispers in the Halls. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and we're stepping deeper into the shadows of Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're new to our tale, find a cozy nook, perhaps with a steaming mug or a soft blanket, and let the elegance of 1920s England wrap around you like a velvet cloak. For those returning to Ashford Manor, thank you for joining us once more in this labyrinth of deceit. I'll read slowly, letting each twist unfold like moonlight through a fog, perfect for those moments when you crave a mystery to unravel. If you're enjoying this journey, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? A quiet countryside retreat or a city humming with secrets? Now, let's return to the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot's little gray cells face new complications. The game, as they say, is afoot. The sun hung low over Ashford Manor, its golden rays struggling to pierce the heavy air within. The Crimson Ballroom, once a stage for waltzes and laughter, now felt like a mausoleum, its scarlet drapes casting long shadows across the polished floor. Sir Reginald Harrington's murder in his locked study, a dagger in his chest, the crimson ruby stolen, had transformed the manor into a cauldron of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate suit a stark contrast to the chaos, moved through the estate with the precision of a metronome, his green eyes missing nothing. The guests, confined to the drawing room under Sergeant Brooks's watchful eye, whispered accusations, their civility fraying like old silk. The locked room mystery, with its bolted windows and single key, found hidden in Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood's luggage, wrapped in a silk scarf. She gasped, her pearls clutched tightly as Japp brandished the gem. "Explain this, madam," he demanded. Mrs. Blackwood's face paled. "I swear it was planted. I've never seen it before." Her voice cracked, and Poirot observed her trembling hands, wondering if her indignation masked guilt or genuine shock. The ruby's discovery deepened the mystery. If Mrs. Blackwood was the thief, how had she entered the locked study? And if framed, who sought to divert suspicion? Poirot's inquiries took a new turn as he explored a rumor whispered by the maid, Elsie. Ashford Manor had a secret passage, sealed decades ago after a scandal involving a runaway heiress. With Graves's reluctant guidance, Poirot inspected the study's bookcase, where legend placed the passage's entrance. A faint seam in the wood suggested a hidden panel, but it was sealed tight, its hinges rusted. "No one has opened this in years," Graves insisted. But Poirot's eyes lingered on a faint scratch near the base, fresh enough to raise doubts. A dead end, or a clue disguised as history. The guests' motives grew murkier. Lady Victoria, her grief tempered by resolve, confided a secret to Poirot in the library, her voice barely above a whisper. "Father opposed my marriage to Desmond," she admitted, her raven hair falling over her tear-streaked face. "He said Desmond wasn't worthy, threatened to disinherit me." Her words cast a shadow over Captain Lyle, whose wartime smuggling letter, found in the study, now seemed more damning. Had he killed to secure his future with Victoria? Poirot noted her trembling hands, wondering if her confession was truth or a shield for her beloved. Miss Lydia Voss, when questioned again, grew defensive about her notebook. "It's just my novel," she insisted. But Poirot glimpsed a page with the word "revenge" scrawled repeatedly. "Fiction, mademoiselle?" he asked, his tone gentle but probing. Lydia flushed. "I draw from life, yes, but a grudge against Sir Reginald, over a business deal that cost him his fortune, loomed large." Poirot found a smudged footprint in the study, matching Hale's boots, but the colonel claimed it was from entering after the door was forced. A truth or a convenient lie? The Countess Petrova remained an enigma, her serene smile unshaken even as the silk scrap pointed to her. "I admire beauty, monsieur," she said when asked about the ruby, "but I do not steal." Yet Poirot learned from a footman that she'd asked about the manor's security, specifically the study's lock. Her jasmine perfume, so distinctive, clung to the study's air, but her alibi, admiring paintings, was confirmed by a maid who'd passed her in the hall. Was she a bystander or a master of deception? A twist emerged during afternoon tea, served in the drawing room to keep the guests contained. As tensions boiled, Colonel Hale accused the Countess of being a spy, his voice loud enough to rattle the teacups. "She's no art collector. She's after that ruby for some foreign scheme." The Countess laughed, a sound like silver bells, but Poirot noted her fingers tightening on her cup. Mrs. Blackwood, emboldened by the ruby's discovery in her room, accused Miss Voss of planting it, citing their rivalry over Victoria's friendship. Lydia snapped, "You're paranoid, Eleanor." The room erupted in accusations, and Poirot watched, his silence a net gathering every word. A new clue surfaced when Elsie, the maid, nervously approached Poirot. "I saw something odd, sir," she whispered. "Before the scream, I heard a thump in the study, like something falling." She'd been in the corridor, adjusting a vase, but saw no one enter or leave. The thump suggested a struggle, but the locked door remained a barrier. Poirot returned to the study, finding a book on the floor near the desk, a heavy tome on Egyptian artifacts, open to a page about cursed gems. Was it knocked over in a fight, or placed to mislead? "Another say," he said, his voice soft but sharp. "The truth. It cannot hide forever." As evening fell, the manor's shadows deepened, the Crimson Ballroom a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Poirot stood alone in the study, his cane tapping softly, his mind a whirl of contradictions. The ruby in Mrs. Blackwood's room, the sealed passage, the thump, the shadow, the letter accusing Lyle. Each clue was a piece of a mosaic, but the pattern eluded him. "Patience," he whispered. "The little gray cells. They will find the way." And here we pause, dear listeners, with the mystery twisting like a vine around Ashford Manor. What do these new threads reveal? Who is weaving a web of lies? Stay with us for the next chapter, and share your suspicions in the comments. Who's your prime suspect now? This is Elias Thorne, leaving you in the heart of the enigma. Until next time, let the whispers of the manor guide your dreams. Chapter 6, The Web Tightens. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, guiding you further into the intricate puzzle of Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're joining us anew, settle into a cozy spot, perhaps with a warm cuppa or a flickering candle, and let the elegance of 1920s England draw you into its shadows. For those returning to Ashford Manor, thank you for stepping back into this web of suspicion and secrets. I'll read slowly, letting each revelation unfold like a fog lifting from the Sussex hills, perfect for those quiet moments when you crave a mystery to unravel. If you're enjoying this tale, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? A sleepy village tucked away, or a city buzzing with intrigue? Drop a comment and share. Now, let's return to the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are closing in on the truth. The evening shadows stretched long across Ashford Manor,
cloaking the estate in a hush broken only by the distant call of an owl. The Crimson Ballroom, its scarlet—
Eleanor Blackwood's room had stirred accusations, but her vehement denial, it was planted, rang with conviction. The jasmine scent, the silver silk scrap, the pearl earring, the smudged footprint, and the letter accusing Captain Desmond Lyle of smuggling formed a constellation of clues, but the pattern was elusive. Poirot, undeterred, began a fresh round of inquiries, determined to unravel the truth. In the drawing room, where the guests were confined, tensions simmered like a kettle left too long on the fire. Poirot stood before them, his hands clasped behind his back, his voice calm but piercing. Mesdames et messieurs, the truth, it hides in the shadows, but it cannot hide forever. Let us examine the facts anew. He turned first to the footprint in the study, a faint smudge near the desk matching Dr. Julian Thorne's shoes. Monsieur Thorne, you said you entered only after the door was forced, oui? Yet this footprint, it is precise, not trampled by others. Thorne's tick flared, his spectacles glinting as he stammered. I stepped in briefly to check if Reginald was alive. It must be from then. His hands trembled, and Poirot noted a faint ink stain on his cuff, matching the letter's ink. And this letter, Poirot continued, holding up the document accusing Captain Lyle. It bears a tremor in the writing, as if written under duress. Or perhaps forged? Thorne's face paled, but he said nothing, his silence louder than words. A red herring surfaced when Poirot questioned Mr. Graves, the butler, whose alibi, overseeing the ballroom servants, cracked under scrutiny. A footman, Thomas, revealed that Graves had been absent for nearly 10 minutes before the scream, seen near the study corridor. I was fetching more champagne from the cellar, Graves insisted, his silver hair catching the lamplight. But Poirot's eyes narrowed. The cellar was in the opposite direction. Was Graves hiding a role in the crime, or merely a lapse in duty? A significant twist emerged when Poirot re-examined the dagger. Inspector Japp, small brass paperweight lay askew, as if knocked over. A struggle, perhaps, Poirot mused, or a staged one. The groundskeeper's report of a shadowy figure by the study window took on new weight when Poirot found a tiny splinter of wood near the window's frame, suggesting an attempt to pry it open. Yet the bolts remained firm, the glass unbroken. The window. It is a distraction, Poirot murmured, his mind turning to the sealed passage behind the bookcase. He pressed the panel again, finding a faint give in the wood, but no mechanism to open it. The scratch at its base, fresh and deliberate, hinted at recent use. But how? A new complication arose when Miss Lydia Voss's notebook, glimpsed during a heated exchange with Mrs. Blackwood, revealed a sketch of the study's layout, eerily accurate. "It's for my novel," Lydia protested, her auburn curls bouncing as she clutched the book. But Poirot's gentle smile was unrelenting. "Mademoiselle, your fiction, it is too close to reality, non?" Her jealousy of Lady Victoria, coupled with her admitted feelings for Captain Lyle, painted her as a suspect. But her alibi, writing in the library, was partially confirmed by a maid who'd seen her there. Captain Lyle's composure faltered when Poirot pressed him about the smuggling letter. "It's a lie," he insisted, his scarred cheek twitching. "Reginald and I argued, yes, but about Victoria's dowry, not some fabricated crime." Yet Victoria's confession about her father's opposition to their marriage suggested a deeper motive. Had Lyle killed to secure his future? Or was the letter a plant to frame him? Mrs. Blackwood's discovery of the ruby in her room fueled her paranoia. "Someone wants me blamed," she cried, accusing the Countess, whose jasmine perfume lingered in the study. The Countess Petrova, unruffled, denied involvement, but Poirot learned from a footman that she'd inquired about the ruby's provenance days before the gala. "Mere curiosity," she said, her silver gown shimmering as she sipped tea. But her interest in the gem, coupled with the silk footprint, the aconite, the thumb, the splinter, the sketch, the glove. In the drawing room, accusations flew. Mrs. Blackwood accused Lydia of planting the ruby. Lydia retorted that Eleanor's inheritance dispute was motive enough. Hale glowered at the Countess, muttering about foreign thieves, while Thorne's tic betrayed his growing panic. Victoria and Lyle whispered urgently, their trust strained. The Countess watched it all, her smile a mask of serenity. Poirot gathered the guests for a final round of questions, his voice soft but commanding. "The killer is clever, oui, but not invisible. The locked room, it is a trick, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover it." He studied their faces, noting Thorne's trembling hands, Lydia's furtive glances, Hale's clenched fists. The truth was close, but it danced just beyond reach. As midnight loomed, Poirot stood alone in the study, the lamplight casting his shadow across the blood-stained rug. He traced the bookcase's seam, the splinter, the ash, his mind weaving connections. "The web tightens," he whispered, "and the spider, it cannot escape." The locked room held its secrets, but Poirot's little gray cells were relentless, poised to unravel the impossible. Chapter 7. Unraveling the Knots. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and we're venturing further into the tangled web of Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're just joining us, find a snug corner, perhaps with a warm shawl or a crackling fire, and let the elegance of 1920s England pull you into its shadows. For those returning to Ashford Manor, thank you for stepping back into this maze of secrets and suspicion. I'll read slowly, letting each revelation unfold like a petal in the dawn, perfect for those quiet moments when you crave a mystery to unravel. If you're enjoying this tale, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And that defied reason. But new clues were unraveling the knots of deceit. Poirot began the evening with a meticulous review of the evidence, his cane tapping softly as he paced the study. The silver silk scrap, the jasmine scent, the pearl earring, the smudged footprint, the aconite-laced dagger, and the letter accusing Captain Desmond Lyle of smuggling formed a constellation of clues. But a fresh discovery tightened the web. Hidden in Sir Reginald's desk, behind a false panel, Poirot found a revised will, dated only days before the gala. It named Lady Victoria as the sole heir, cutting off Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, Dr. Julian Thorne, and even Colonel Marcus Hale, who'd expected a share from past promises. The will's ink was fresh, its implications explosive. Had someone learned of this change and acted to prevent it? Poirot confronted the guests in the drawing room, where tension hung like smoke. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice a calm blade. "This will, it alters motives. Who among you knew of Sir Reginald's intentions?" Mrs. Blackwood's face drained of color, her pearls clutched tightly. "He wouldn't dare," she snapped. "My inheritance was mine by right." Her outrage was palpable, but Poirot noted her trembling hands. Fear or guilt? A new twist emerged when Poirot questioned Captain Lyle about the smuggling letter. Under pressure, Lyle's composure cracked. "It's a forgery," he insisted, his scarred cheek twitching. "But Reginald and I had a past. During the war we dealt in supplies, nothing illegal, but he held it over me." The admission cast a shadow. Had Sir Reginald threatened to expose Lyle, jeoparding a motive for murder? Lady Victoria, seated beside him, gasped softly, her trust visibly shaken. Miss Lydia Voss's notebook yielded another clue when Poirot, with her reluctant permission, examined it. Among the sketches and cryptic notes was a detailed description of a locked room murder. But I wasn't spying. Yet the deep footprints and warm stubs suggested he'd lingered, perhaps watching the study. His old grudge, a fortune lost to Sir Reginald's cunning, remained a motive, but a red herring surfaced. A bloody glove, monogrammed with an H, found in Hale's room during a search. "It's not mine," he roared, accusing an unseen framer. Poirot noted the glove's leather was pristine, unlike Hale's worn attire. Planted? Or a clumsy oversight? The Countess Irina Petrova's serene facade wavered when Poirot revealed a bombshell. Her passport, examined by Jap, was a forgery. "You are not who you claim, madame," Poirot said, his voice soft but sharp. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "A precaution, monsieur, from a life of exile. I am no killer." Her interest in the ruby, confirmed by staff, and the jasmine scent kept her in focus. But her alibi, admiring paintings, was unshaken, verified by 2 maids. A pivotal clue emerged when Poirot re-examined the study's bookcase, the rumored site of a sealed passage. Pressing the panel, he felt a faint click, revealing a hidden mechanism. But it jammed, rusted from disuse. A closer look showed fresh oil on the hinges, suggesting recent tampering. "The impossible room. It is not so impossible," Poirot murmured, his mind racing. The scratch at the panel's base, the splinter by the window. Someone had tried to obscure their entry. But how? The staff provided further whispers. Elsie, the maid, admitted overhearing a heated exchange between Sir Reginald and Mrs. Blackwood days before the gala about the contested inheritance. "He called her a leech," Elsie whispered, "and she swore he'd regret it." Mr. Graves, when pressed, revealed he'd seen Dr. Thorne near the study earlier that evening, carrying his medical bag. "Routine check," Thorne claimed, but his tic betrayed him. A dramatic twist unfolded when Poirot discovered a second letter in Sir Reginald's desk, this one accusing the Countess of being. Sketches drew scrutiny, her protests drowned by Hale's accusations of literary trickery. Thorne's panic was palpable, his hands shaking as he avoided Poirot's gaze. The Countess watched silently, her smile a mask of calculation. Victoria, torn between grief and doubt, pleaded with Lyle to be honest, her voice breaking. Poirot gathered the guests for a final interrogation, his presence commanding silence. "The locked room, it is a trick," he said. "And the clues, they point to one among you. The will, the aconite, the glove, the passage. Each is a knot, and I, Hercule Poirot, will unravel them. He studied their faces, Thorne's tick, Lydia's furtive glances, Hale's clenched fists, Lyle's guarded eyes. The truth was close, a shadow taking shape. As midnight loomed, Poirot stood alone in the study, the lamplight casting his silhouette across the blood-stained rug. He traced the bookcase's hidden mechanism, the oil, the splinter, his mind weaving connections. "The killer believes they are safe," he whispered. "But the little gray cells, they see through the darkness." The locked room's secret was within reach, and justice was stirring. Chapter 8. The Hidden Truths. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and we're delving deeper into the shadows of Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're joining us for the first time, find a cozy nook, perhaps with a steaming cup of tea or a soft blanket, and let the elegance of 1920s England envelop you. For those returning to Ashford Manor, thank you for stepping back into this labyrinth of deceit and deduction. I'll read slowly, letting each revelation unfold like mist parting over a darkened lake, perfect for those quiet moments when you crave a mystery to unravel. If you're enjoying this tale, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? A quiet countryside village, or a city pulsing with mystery? With its bolted windows and single key, was a puzzle that defied logic. But new truths were emerging, casting light into the shadows. Poirot began the night with a renewed focus, his cane tapping softly as he revisited the study. The silver silk scrap, the jasmine scent, the pearl earring, the aconite-laced dagger, the smudged footprint, the forged letters, and the hidden will formed a complex tapestry. But a fresh discovery tightened the weave. Tucked inside a hollowed-out book on the study's shelf, a tome on ancient curses, was a small note in Sir Reginald's hand. "Beware the traitor among us." The ink was fresh, dated the day of the gala, and its cryptic warning suggested Sir Reginald had feared betrayal. Was it a clue to his killer, or another misdirection? Poirot confronted the guests, his voice calm but piercing. "Mesdames et messieurs, Sir Reginald suspected treachery, and this note, it points to one of you. Who did he fear?" The room erupted in murmurs, eyes darting with suspicion. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, her pearls clutched tightly, snapped. "He was paranoid. That note means nothing." But her trembling hands betrayed her unease, and Poirot recalled the ruby found in her room. A plant, or proof of guilt? A shocking twist surfaced when Poirot re-examined Captain Desmond Lyle's past. A telegram from Scotland Yard, prompted by Japp's inquiries, revealed a tattoo hidden beneath Lyle's scar, linking him to a wartime smuggling ring tied to Sir Reginald's business dealings. "It's old history," Lyle protested, his voice strained. "Reginald and I settled our differences years ago." But Victoria, seated beside him, pulled away, her eyes wide with doubt. "You never told me," she whispered, her grief now laced with betrayal. The tattoo deepened Lyle's motive. Had Sir Reginald threatened to expose him, endangering his marriage? Miss Lydia Voss's notebook yielded another clue when Poirot, with Japp's was he being framed? Colonel Marcus Hale's temper flared when confronted about the bloody glove monogrammed with an H. "It's not mine," he roared, accusing an unseen framer. But a fresh discovery, A second glove, identical but clean, found in the manor's library, suggested a deliberate plant. The cigar ash near the study window, combined with Hale's deep footprints, pointed to surveillance. But his motive, a lost fortune, lacked evidence of direct action. "I despised Reginald," Hale admitted, "but I'm no murderer." Poirot's eyes lingered on him, noting his clenched fists. The Countess Irina Petrova's forged passport deepened her mystery. When pressed, she admitted to a false identity, claiming it was to escape a turbulent past in Russia. "The ruby was beautiful, but I did not steal it," she said, her silver gown shimmering in the lamplight. Yet the jasmine scent and silver silk scrap kept her in focus. A maid's testimony placed her near the study corridor before the scream, contradicting her painting alibi. "I wandered briefly," she conceded, her smile faltering. Was she a thief or a scapegoat? A critical revelation came when Poirot re-examined the bookcase's hidden panel. With Japp's help, he applied pressure to the hidden spring from Lydia's sketch, and the panel clicked open, revealing a narrow passage, its hinges oiled but dusty. The passage led to a servant's corridor, accessible from the ballroom. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed. "The locked room! It is not locked!" The passage had been used, its dust disturbed by recent footprints, too faint to identify, but proof the killer had bypassed the oak door. The scratch at the panel's base, the oiled hinges. This was no myth, but a key to the crime. Another twist surfaced when Elsie, the maid, revealed a conversation she'd overheard between Sir Reginald and Dr. Thorne days before the gala. "He threatened to ruin the doctor," she whispered. "Said he'd expose his debts and other dealings." Thorne's face drained of color when confronted. "It was a misunderstanding," he insisted, torn between love and doubt, pleaded with Lyle for answers, her voice breaking. Poirot gathered the guests for a tense interrogation, his presence commanding silence. "The passage, it changes everything," he said. "The killer entered and left unseen. But the clues, the aconite, the glove, the note, they point to one of you." He studied their faces, Thorne's panic, Lydia's furtive glances, Hale's anger, Lyle's guarded eyes. The truth was near, a shadow taking form. As dawn approached, Poirot stood alone in the study, the lamplight casting his silhouette across the blood-stained rug. He traced the passage's entrance, the oiled hinges, the faint footprints, his mind weaving connections. "The hidden truths, they emerge," he whispered, "and the killer, they cannot hide." The locked room was no longer a mystery, but the killer's identity remained just out of reach. Chapter 9. The Grand Revelation. Welcome back to Mystery Hour Stories. I'm your host, Elias Thorne, and we're reaching the heart of our tale. Corpse in the Crimson Ballroom, a Hercule Poirot Killer Story. If you're joining us anew, settle into a cozy corner, perhaps with a warm drink or a flickering candle, and let the elegance of 1920s England draw you into its shadows. For those who've journeyed with us through Ashford Manor's secrets, thank you for returning to this web of intrigue. I'll read slowly, letting each revelation unfold like a curtain parting on a grand stage. Perfect for those quiet moments when you crave a mystery's resolution. If you're enjoying this tale, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? A tranquil village or a city alive with whispers? Drop a comment and share. Now, let's gather in the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot is poised to unveil the truth. The second dawn at Ashford Manor cast a pale the center of the ballroom. His hands clasped behind his back, surveyed the guests. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his Belgian accent a soothing cadence. A crime most ingenious has been committed, but the truth, it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. The killer is among us, and now I shall reveal them. The guests shifted uneasily, eyes darting. Poirot's gaze was steady, his voice deliberate. Let us begin with the crime. Sir Reginald, stabbed in a locked study. The ruby stolen. No entry or exit possible, save for the hidden passage behind the bookcase. Its hinges oiled, its dust disturbed. But the clues, they tell a story. The silver silk, the jasmine scent, the pearl, the aconite, the forged letters, the glove, the note. Each was a thread. And now, the tapestry is clear. He turned to the passage, gesturing to the study door. The locked room. It was no mystery. The killer entered through the passage, stabbed Sir Reginald, stole the ruby, and exited, sealing the panel. But who? Let us consider the motives. He paced slowly, his cane tapping. Mrs. Blackwood, your inheritance was contested, and the ruby was found in your room. A motive, but too obvious. Perhaps a frame? She clutched her pearls, her face pale. I told you, it was planted, she cried. Captain Lyle, Poirot continued. Your smuggling past and Sir Reginald's threat to block your marriage gave you reason. The forged letter accusing you. Was it a distraction or truth? Lyle's scar twitched, but he remained silent. Victoria's hand trembling in his. Dr. Thorne, your debts and the aconite in your bag point to you. Did Sir Reginald threaten to expose your ruin? Thorne's tick was frantic, his voice a whisper. I didn't kill him, he stammered. Aconite. Your presence near the study. Too many coincidences. You knew of the passage, From treating Sir Reginald, you learned of the manor's secrets. Thorne's face drained of color. No, I only prescribed the aconite, he cried, but his voice broke. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The passage was opened with oil. Its hinges worked silently. You entered, stabbed Sir Reginald with the dagger, laced with your aconite to ensure death. You stole the ruby, planting it in Madame Blackwood's room to frame her. The silk scrap, the jasmine scent. These were misdirections, borrowed from the Countess's presence in the corridor. The room gasped. Thorne staggered, his spectacles slipping. You have no proof, he shouted, but Poirot raised a hand. The proof. It is in the details. The ink on your cuff matches the forged letters, written to divert suspicion to Monsieur Lyle and the Countess. The footprint in the study, yours, was made before the door was forced. And the thump Mademoiselle Elsie heard, it was you, knocking over the book to stage a struggle.
Thorne's tick stopped, his shoulders slumping.
He was going to ruin me,
He whispered, his voice hollow.
He knew of my debts, my mistakes with prescriptions. He threatened to expose me, to destroy my career. I had no choice.
The confession hung in the air, a weight lifted yet crushing. Poirot continued, his voice softening.
You used the passage, known from Sir Reginald's tales of the manor's history. You entered, killed, and exited, sealing the panel. The ruby was a distraction, its theft meant to point to greed, not debt. The glove, the letters, these were your attempts to muddy the waters. But the little gray cells, they see clearly.
Japp stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Well done, Poirot, he grunted. You've got him. Thorne collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, as the guests stared, some in shock, others in relief.
Plus, for the first time, settle into a cozy nook, perhaps with a steaming cup of tea or a soft blanket, and let the elegance of 1920s England wrap you in its fading glow. For those who've journeyed with us through the shadows of Ashford Manor, thank you for staying until the end of this intricate mystery. I'll read slowly, letting each moment linger like the last notes of a waltz. Perfect for those quiet evenings when you crave resolution. If you've enjoyed this tale, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tap that bell for more. And I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? A tranquil countryside retreat, or a city humming with secrets? Drop a comment and share. Now let's return to the Crimson Ballroom, where Hercule Poirot has unmasked the killer, and the echoes of justice are settling over the manor. The morning sun rose over Ashford Manor, casting golden rays across the Sussex hills, as if to cleanse the estate of its dark secrets. The Crimson Ballroom, its scarlet drapes now parted to let in the light, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. Sir Reginald Harrington, murdered in his locked study, a jeweled dagger in his chest, the crimson ruby stolen. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit and waxed mustache a symbol of order restored, had unraveled the mystery, exposing Dr. Julian Thorne as the killer. The guests, gathered in the drawing room, were a tableau of relief and lingering unease, their faces reflecting the weight of truth unveiled. The locked room, once an impossible enigma, was now explained, its hidden passage the key to the crime. But the aftermath of such a revelation demanded closure, and Poirot was not one to leave threads untied. The drawing room, with its heavy oak furniture and stern portraits of Harrington ancestors, was bathed in soft light, the fire in the hearth reduced to glowing embers. Inspector Japp, his gruff demeanor softened by satisfaction, stood by as Dr. Thorne, handcuffed and defeated, was led away by Sergeant Brooks. Thorne's tick had ceased. Of secrets squeezed Victoria's hand. The forged letter accusing him of smuggling, planted by Thorne, had been debunked, though his wartime dealings with Sir Reginald cast a lingering shadow. I should have been honest with you, Victoria, he admitted, his voice low. Your father and I had our differences, but I loved you too much to lose you. Victoria's eyes softened, and Poirot noted the strength of their bond, forged anew in the crucible of truth. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, her pearls now resting lightly against her chest, stood by a window, gazing at the gardens. The ruby found in her room had been a cruel frame, but Poirot's revelation had cleared her name. "I despised Reginald for what he did to my inheritance," she confessed, turning to Poirot. "But I'm no murderer. Thank you for seeing that." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, greed is emotive, but your heart, it did not bend to violence." Miss Lydia Voss, her auburn curls framing a face now free of suspicion, clutched her notebook, its sketches and cryptic notes proven to be mere fiction. "I let my imagination run wild," she said, her voice sheepish. "I never meant to cause trouble." Poirot's smile was gentle. "Mademoiselle, your pen is sharp, but it is not a dagger. Write your stories, but let them stay on the page." Colonel Marcus Hale, his ruddy face softened by relief, lit a fresh cigar, its smoke curling upward. The bloody glove with his initial, another of Thorne's plants, had nearly ensnared him, but his terrace alibi held firm. "Reginald was a cad," he grumbled, "but I'm glad it's over." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Monsieur, your temper is fierce, but your honor, it is intact." The Countess Irina Petrova, her silver gown shimmering in the morning light, offered Poirot a nod of respect. Her forged passport and interest in the ruby had cast suspicion, but the jasmine scent and silver silk scrap were red herrings, exploited by Thorne to mislead. "You are a..." revealed what was hidden. Poirot took a final walk through the Crimson Ballroom. Its scarlet drapes now parted to reveal the gardens in bloom. The empty ruby case stood as a reminder of the crime, but the room's elegance was reclaiming its spirit. He paused by the study door, its oak surface now unremarkable, the hidden passage behind the bookcase sealed once more. The clues, aconite, silk, pearl, glove, letters, had been a symphony of deception, orchestrated by Thorne to mask his desperation. The doctor's debts, his fear of exposure, and his knowledge of the passage had driven him to murder, a plan undone by Poirot's relentless logic. As noon approached, Poirot prepared to depart, his valise packed with the same precision as his thoughts. The guests gathered in the grand hall to bid him farewell, their faces a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. Victoria and Lyle, their love reaffirmed, announced plans for a quiet wedding, free of the manor's shadows. "We'll start anew," Victoria said, her smile tentative but hopeful. Poirot bowed, his mustache twitching. "Mademoiselle, love is the greatest mystery, and you have solved it." Mrs. Blackwood, her inheritance dispute unresolved, but her name cleared, offered a rare smile. Lydia vowed to write a novel inspired by the ordeal, promising to dedicate it to Poirot. Hale clapped the detective on the shoulder, his cigar smoke a friendly cloud. The Countess, her secrets intact, slipped Poirot a card with a cryptic note. For another puzzle, perhaps. He tucked it away, amused. Inspector Japp, grumbling good-naturedly, shook Poirot's hand. "You've done it again, old chap," he said. "But next time, let's have a simpler case, eh?" Poirot chuckled. "Mon ami, simplicity is not the way of the human heart." As the Rolls-Royce carried Poirot to the station, the manor receded into the hills, its ivy-clad walls bathed in sunlight. He gazed out the window, his mind already turning to new puzzles. The little gray cells, sweet mysteries.